All right, I think we can start. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Today in this webinar, we're going to do a deep dive into data flow, into some of the advanced nodes and also some features that you may or may not know. And hopefully you'll learn some stuff along the way. All right, so today, we are two people here hosting this event today. So myself, Anna Walter, I'm the product manager at ClicData. And I have with me Elise Geraldus, who is our senior data analyst in France. And she will be answering your questions on the chat, as said before. So don't be shy and you can ask anything you want. And we will also have some time for questions at the end of the webinar, hopefully. So we'll see if all the questions are answered or not by then. Okay, so what is on the agenda today? First of all, I'll do a quick recap of what data flow is. And then we'll go into the nice stuff, into the demo of the application and some of the specific nodes. And also, we'll do a tour of the editor, something we have never done before in the webinar series, just to show you a bit more of the features that may not be as much highlighted as others. And then at the end, we'll go as well through look into the future to see what's next and what features are going to be developed for data flow next time. All right, so first, let's look at what data flow is. So data flow is our transformation for data module in ClicData. It's a way to visualize how your data is going to be cleaned, processed, transformed, etc. in a grid format. We'll look at that a bit later. So it's one of our core features. Basically, what a data flow is it's starts from an input table, which is a data table from any source in your account. It goes through a few transformations, which we call nodes. Each node is a type of transformation. And then once the data is transformed and cleaned, etc., you can output that into a new table, which is the output table. So that's what a very simple flow looks like. And there are a few basic principles to keep in mind. So you need at least one input table and one output table, otherwise nothing is processed. You can create data flows without those two elements, but they won't do anything. So you need at least one input and one output, but actually you can also have more. You can have more input tables and more output tables. We'll see that in the examples. And then you can also have an unlimited number of nodes and branches. What I mean by branches is that, for example, you can have a node which does cleaning, and then from there you have two branches that go away, and then and they might finish in two different output tables. And you can also have parallel branches that do not interact at all with each other. Everything is possible in the data flow. And then you have some nodes, they need two inputs. We'll see a few examples. So for example, when you do a join or an aggregation between different tables, of course, you need two inputs because you have two data tables coming together in one place. And yeah, and then one important thing to know is that the flow will refresh the output table only when you execute it. So it's not automatic, meaning that when your input table refreshes, it will not automatically run the data flow. So you need to create a task in a schedule to run the data flow so that your output table is refreshed and updated. So that actually brings me to the benefits of data flow. So first of all, the big benefit of data flow is that you have a very clear overview of all the data transformations in one place. And the second one is the versioning. So as I just said before, you need to actually define when you want your output table to be refreshed. And that means as well that you can work on a data flow without executing it. And let's imagine that your output table is used maybe in a dashboard that is live. And you actually don't want the dashboard to change until you're really finished with your transformations and you work on the data flow. So you can totally control the version of your output table when you want to refresh it, so that it always shows correct in the end result in a dashboard or in a report or a data stream or wherever you are using that output table. So the other benefits are top-notch performances. We have worked very hard to make data flow super performant and processing very smooth and powerful, and we are constantly working on that. And then you have the collaboration piece, which is important. You have some tools which really help for collaboration in the data flow. We'll go through that in the demo time. And then you can manage each data flow one by one as all the other objects in ClicData. You can control who is editing, who is viewing, and who has access or not. All right, so now we've seen that. I want to go into the application and show you around.
All right, so we are now in an account which is used to demo and learn things about ClicData. So I'm going to go to my data flow, which I've prepared for this webinar. And this is it. So I'm going to talk about the editor and different features we have there. But first of all, just want to show again what a flow is, just simply. So it starts with an input table, and we then have a node. In this case, it's a data that fixes values, and these rules are then applied into the data, which is outputted in a different table, and which I process whenever I want. So the navigation here in the data flow can be done in different ways. We have, of course, the scrolling up and down. We can also zoom in or out. Here I'm just holding my control key. I can also scroll vertically or horizontally. Here I'm just pushing my key, my shift key, to scroll to the left or to the right. And we also have this mini map here, which enables you to see what else is actually on the data flow. Here I can simply zoom in or zoom out on that map, and then just click on any element and any place and just go there. And of course, I can also zoom in or zoom out over here. I can also change the zooming here manually if I want, and I can also fit everything to my screen and then just go in and out of these elements here. So the grid here is actually infinite, so you can place things wherever you want. Yep. And you can also choose to just disable the grids if you want. If you prefer, you can also hide that map if you don't need it, if you don't have much space like I have here on this mini screen. And I could also choose to toggle annotations on or off. Annotations are these elements here. I'm just going to talk about that at the very end. Okay, so that's how you navigate in a flow. And I actually prefer with the grid. And you can open the box here to see all the different nodes that you can use in your flow. There are different types. So these are the tables for input and output. And then you have nodes which are, for example, used for grouping or for filtering, others for lookups and joins between tables. We have processing nodes, cleaning nodes, parsing and splitting. So we're going to go through a few of them today. It's very simple to use. You can just pin that panel there to the left if you want to have that all the time at your fingertips when you're building a flow, or you can just remove it if you'd prefer to have a clean space. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the different options here. So when you run a flow, basically you execute whatever is in these nodes, and you process the data in this output table. So meaning that if I run this flow here, it will take the data from this input table and then apply the rules which are over here, and then this will be put out in that data table. So basically, it's refreshing the table. And there are different other options here. So you can do the same thing and just simulate all the processing without actually updating the output table. So this is useful, for example, if this output table is used in a dashboard, which is live, which is used by your users, and you're actually working on your flow, but you're not sure about the steps you're doing, and you don't want to update right away the output table. You just want to make sure that the flow is fine and there are no errors. So you could just simulate all the flows. If there are errors, they will actually show in the logs of the simulation, and that will help you pinpoint the bugs and debug them. And then finally, you have also the validation. Validation is similar to simulation. It just doesn't process the data, meaning that validation is really just looking at the SQL that is built with all these processing and transformation nodes and making sure that there are no syntax errors in SQL. So syntax errors or just errors can happen if, for example, you do a join between different tables and the tables are and the data you are, the columns you're working on and you are joining together are not of the same type. So this will actually result into an error, into a SQL error, which you will see in the validation. And then we have also statistics. So the statistics is something we introduced recently. It will show you the time it took to process all the data flow for each execution. And you can see that we can have a processing time of the total in the last execution and also an average in this version. And you can see also the detail. So node by node, not every node is there, just the processing nodes are there. But you can see that, for example, we have different other versions here, which will show how much time was used in these nodes. And then we have also the statistics on certain specific nodes. For example, if I choose here this output table, I can see the number of columns and rows that were processed. And then basically you go back to the same kind of screen. We have other nodes, for example, the AI nodes, which show other types of statistics. All right, so we also have introduced a feature recently, which is the validation. I'm just going to use this example here. So let's see an example. So we have the ability also now to preview the data in a new way. So you can actually preview two nodes side by side. You just need to select any node and then just hit that little button here to see what's in there. So in this case here, I have orders. So ID orders and then customer names, how much they ordered, the shipping date, etc. And I have a filter here. The filter is just filtering on whatever is where the amount is less than 10. So if I want to see the results of this filter, I can simply show it here. And if I now disable this filter, it's going to go here. You can see that the preview is telling me that the visualization should be refreshed because something was changed on the node. It will actually show me everything again, right? Because I have disabled the node. So disabling nodes is actually very useful exactly for that kind of feature, for that kind of scenario where you're actually just filtering on some elements of your data because you want to check that maybe a transformation you did before is working as you expected it to work, etc. But you don't want to filter all your data actually in the end. But you want to keep that filter there just for checking scenarios, and it's useful to have it there. So you can disable the node. And as you can see, you have that little option here at the top. So you can actually disable multiple nodes at the same time. So if I select these two nodes, I can now disable or enable them all at the same time. Okay. Okay, so that's one handy feature. And also I wanted to talk about the shortcuts here. So I don't know if you like to work with keyboard shortcuts. Some people do. There is one shortcut which is really interesting here. I think it's the deletion of a node with keeping the connection. So basically, if you just hit Shift and the delete button, you will be able to delete any node in the flow and just keep the connection as if that node never was there. And it just saves you a few clicks of just rebinding things. So useful, that's useful. And I also wanted to show you a little trick here. If you want to gain some, fluidity in your work, you can simply drag and drop any node on top of any other, and it will just I just released the node here, and as you can see, it was just placed below, and we have added the link already. So yeah, just wanted to share that little tip. All right, so now let's dive into some of the nodes I wanted to show you. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit and just go to my first set of examples. Yes, so I wanted to talk about schema transformation nodes. The first example here is the pivot transformation I wanted to show. In this case, I have sales data here for different car models, and I have sales reps for each of these sales by day and by year, which you can see here. And I wanted to show you how you can pivot the data in there with this example here. In this case, in this pivot node, I'm actually aggregating the sales column in a sum. And I want to aggregate that by segment and car model, and then see rep by rep how much sales were actually done. So if I just select that here, you can see I have said I want to pivot that sales rep name column, and then I have chosen which values I wanna see exactly. So of course I could have done all, but here I just wanted these three guys, and that's the result of my pivot. So I have the grouping by segment by car model. You can see it's this same order, of course. And then I have the sales total for each of these sales rep. And of course I can add more. If I want, I can just select another person and then just preview again. We'll see that Pedro has been added to my data set over here. And of course I can delete it as well at any point. Okay. So that's how the pivot works. It's very powerful. I think it makes sense to play around with it a bit to understand how the pivoted values work. And you can do the same with the onPivot node, just to do the reverse. If you have pivoted data like that, you can just unpivot it very simply. It's a very powerful helper if you're working with, for example, financial data, where you have your financial results in a month by month format, where you have one column per month. So you just want to unpivot that to have a flat table to work with it in an easier way. All right, so now I wanted to talk about another node, which is the aggregate columns node, which is, I think, a very powerful one. It actually allows you to aggregate data from one data set into another based on different rules. In this case here, I have budget data. I want to see for each of my stores with the budget, I want to see the sales for each of those months against it. So I'm aggregating the data from my car sales from before into this using this this node. So I just added some columns here in the middle because I needed to have the sales rep for each of those stores. So I've just done that calculation, that new column here, and then I can aggregate my data from as you can see from this this table here, which is this one. So basically the data is coming from here, yeah, aggregated here into a sum. And then I'm saying that I want to join on the sales rep names and on the months. And the result of this node, we can see it here, is now this new column here, sales total sum, which I've named here. And I can see that for each of my stores, for each of my months, that's the sales total. Okay. So this is a very powerful way to join data. You have other ways to join data as well. For example, if you do a join node, it would simply join columns from two tables and then just lay them out all together with the same idea of join conditions. And you can do the same with lookups, for example, works like VLOOKUPs in Excel or XLOOKUPs now, where you can simply get the value from another column from another data set into your current data set. The combination will do a union with the different tables and just append all the data together. So there are different ways here to do lookups and joins. Next, I want to talk about our JSON to rows and JSON to columns nodes. So these are very powerful if you're dealing with JSON formatted data. I'm just going to show you an example here. I have a very simple data set which shows company information which are formatted in a JSON format. Here I have the details of the name of the CEO and the employees. And I want to actually extract these information, so the CEO and employees, into a more usable format. So this is where the JSON to columns node comes in handy. I have here defined that I want to get the details column. So that's the one. Sorry, this one. And I want to extract CEO and employees. So basically, I just said, well, I want to pick JSON nodes CEO. I'm just actually ticking that box, that's all. And then the rest is filled with the correct information. And same thing for employees. And the result looks like this. It is creating 2 new columns, one for each of these elements. So we have the CEO extracted and the employees extracted in a very nice and clean format, which can then be used for further transformations or visualizations. So now for the other example, JSON to rows is actually useful if you have a series of elements here. For example, you can see here I have sales over 3 years. So I have 3 elements, 3 years. And I want for each year to have a separate row with this information, with the year number and the sales. So I'm using the JSON to rows node in this case. And as you can see, it's the same thing. I'm just selecting the column I want to work on and then which columns I want to extract. And then this is how it looks. I'm just going to make that bigger here. You can see now that for each company, I have 3 rows because I have 3 years in my data. And the sales are shown just in regards to that for each year. So super easy to use, very handy when you're working with JSON and you don't want to extract that with complicated formulas. And we have the same nodes with for text strings. So if your data is not formatted in a JSON format, you can use that, the text to columns and text to rows. And then, for example, you probably have a delimiter between each value. For example, it might be a comma or a semicolon or something else. And then you can split it out and also choose to split it into columns or rows. It works the same way as the JSON nodes. All right, next up is the AI nodes. So AI nodes are using a service and the Open Azure API service to analyze data. In this example here, I'm going to talk about sentiment analysis. I have some reviews here in different languages, some of which I don't master at all. And I want to extract the sentiment of those. So the sentiment analysis node is very simple to use. I just define which column is actually containing my text to analyze. In this case, there is just one text column, so it's the review one. So that's it. And then I say that the text language should be auto-detected. And then I define which output columns I want. And the result of this data looks like this. So the new columns will actually give me information about the sentiment, whether it's positive, neutral, or negative, and also a confidence score for each of these elements. For example, here we can see that the sentiment positive is very sure. There is a 1 here, that's the highest score possible. And so we are sure that the sentence is positive. And you can also see that there is a breakout of these elements here, of these different text elements, which were evaluated by the AI. And as you can see, this is actually JSON. So if you want to extract that with the JSON to rows or JSON to columns node, that's possible, of course. And that will really help you understand why the sentiment was analyzed this way. So it's very interesting. We have great feedback from our customers saying that this node works very well and does a really good job. And actually, we know that, right? AI is good at sentiment analysis for sure. It's something that has been worked on for a long time now. And yeah, and then we have other nodes. So for example, the translation works the same way. You just select the column you wanna translate, and then the language you wanna output from there. You have English if you want, but you can also choose, of course, a lot of other languages. And you can also choose to transliterate it, meaning that, for example, if you have an alphabet that you don't read, you can actually transliterate into a Latin alphabet if that's what you master. So it's a nice option as well to understand what's going on and what's explained in a text that you don't understand. So these nodes actually consume AI credits because it depends on the amount of data that you submit to the AI, and AI credits are included in your sub, so you can also buy more if you need more. You can see that these nodes also show statistics, so you can see how much AI credits were consumed with each run or simulation. All right, and then I want to talk about this Ask AI node, which is one of the most recent ones. The Ask AI node actually allows you to ask any question on your data to the AI. So of course you could use that to actually translate if you want. But in this case, I think it's interesting to use other types of applications. I'm just going to show you this example here. I have a RSS feed coming from the BBC, which shows titles and descriptions of news articles. And what I'm asking the AI to do now is to extract for me any geographies that are mentioned in this text. So I said, I'm just going to read it out. I think it's a bit small for you maybe on the screen. So I said, which geographies are mentioned in this context? It could be regions, countries, places, or anything that can be geographical. And then I said something about the output format. I said the output needs to be formatted as a list of location or countries or regions separated by commas. If no geographies are found, answer with none and nothing else. So I'm just saying that because I don't know if you have experience with working with GPTs. Often GPTs are very talkative and they explain things a lot. And in this case, I don't want that. I just want a very clean and simple output. So I'm going to show you how it looks. And it works very well. I think all the quality of the output really depends on how you are explaining in the prompt what you want. So you can see here, for example, it did talk a bit too much. I didn't want to have all these informations, but in some cases it did work well. So that's the mysteries of AI. You don't always know why it answers in some way, in some cases, in some others, in other cases. But still, I think this data is pretty much nice and looks the way I actually wanted it to be. And of course, I can clean it out afterwards if I need to clean a bit more. Yeah, so the Ask AI node is very interesting. I hope you will share with us what you're doing with it. I think there's a lot of different applications possible. Something you could do as well, for example, is ask the AI about informations that are not in the text. I'm thinking of, for example, if you have mentions of companies, you could ask the AI to give you the name of the current CEO of that company. Could be interesting information to get. So it's not only about your data, it's also about what the AI knows in general. So a very powerful tool, I think. All right, and then we have just a quick note about the geographical elements that we are providing in Dataflow. You can actually geocode addresses directly into latitude and longitude. That's what we have here. I'm just submitting an address for different museums. And I want the output of that node to give me latitude and longitude, and then also some other informations like the postal code, for example, and other elements. So this is how the output looks like. So this is very useful if you're using maps, for example. You could use latitude and longitude to build your location maps and enhance the performance of the map rendering just because you're using latitude and longitude. So it's just super quick and easy to render. And so super simple to use this node. And we have something similar with IP to location. If you just submit an IP address, like this here, for example, you can then say, well, I want to get latitude and longitude and also all the other rest of the location information for that specific IP. And again, use that in your maps if you want. Okay. You even have weather information if you want to use that. That's how it looks. All right, so that's it about the nodes I wanted to present. Of course, we have more nodes, and so you can just dive into it and see how they work. We have extensive documentation on each of them, and if you have questions, of course, just please ask them. I wanted to show as well the designer and annotations here. So you can see that I have been using them here in my data flow just to make sure that I group these different elements together, which I wanted to show today. And basically, how the annotations work is, or the background work, it's just a box that you put wherever you want, and then you can simply change the color and the text if you want. And explain what actually that group of nodes is doing. And this way you can enhance collaboration on the data flow. Because if you have multiple people working on the same data flow, you can just document what nodes are doing and why you're doing it like that. So you can use that the background panel to group the elements together. And then you can use the labels. It's basically just a text box where you can write whatever you want. And explains things. So it's just the label is there to have bigger text elements. Yeah, so this is very useful. We've seen this used a lot by customers, and internally we use it as well a lot. So it really helps with collaboration, and also for yourself, right? If you're working on a very complex data flow and you come back to it a few months later, you don't really remember what you did, but if you have documented your work well, that's actually really helpful. All right, so that's for the tour of the Power Nodes and for the editor of the data flow. I'm now going to go back to my presentation and talk about what's coming next. So the new features we're developing and the future nodes as well. Okay, so we have 2 new nodes coming very soon. So soon means next release in, sorry, not the one in 2 weeks, the one in December. Maybe January, we'll see. Anyways, so the first one is a node to run a data script. So I don't know if you've seen that. We have now a new module which is called data scripts in ClicData, which allows you to write and execute Python codes in ClicData with input parameters and outputs that are actually using the ClicData tables. So this node will allow to run the data script and then get the results and use it in the data flow. And then we also have a node for forecasting, which is coming out very soon, which is using the singular spectrum analysis methods. So that means that you need to input a range of dates and values. And based on those 2 elements, the forecast is able, well, the method is able to forecast the next values in the future. Super easy, super useful if you're using, for example, sales data and you have 2-3 years, whatever, worth of data, and you can see what's coming, what could be the outcome of the sales in the next months. Right, and then 2 new features which I think will really help with the people working in the editor. So first of all, we have checkpoints. So a checkpoint will be able to be put on any node, and that means that you can keep in memory whatever has been processed up to that node, and then you can choose if you want to keep in memory only the 50 first rows, or the full data. And that means that all the subsequent nodes you will be working on, they will actually use that pre-processed data to evaluate the next
results. I don't know if that makes sense. It's useful because if you, for example, working with very large data sets which take a long time to run, now currently when you want to preview a node which is downstream, you actually need to wait for some time until the data is processed, etc. This will allow you to actually don't have to wait so much. If you're just working on your very, very last element, you know, all the rest is fine. You just put that checkpoint there, and then it's super quick to generate the output of your subsequent nodes. Also useful for all the nodes that are using AI or script credits, because each time you run the nodes, even if it's just for preview, it will actually consume credits. So using a checkpoint, it will actually allow you to not use these credits for just previewing. Right, and then you also have the ability to run only a specific output table. So if you've seen in my data flow example here, I had a lot of different mini flows with different output tables. And sometimes when you work on just one of these branches, you just want to see the output of that specific branch because that's what you're working on. You don't want to run everything. So that will allow you, that feature will allow you to actually run only up to that table and not the rest. This is going to be available only in the editor because that's where it makes sense. All right, so we have now reached the end of the presentation. I don't know if you have questions that have not been asked. Now is the time to ask them. I'm just checking the chat if there's anything. Looks like there's no question. I think we're good then. Okay, I hope this was useful and you learned some new stuff. And of course, if you have questions, if you need help with anything, we have the documentation center, we have the support team. So please feel free to reach out. And thank you very much for joining today. And I wish you a very good day. Bye.